Good morning, YouTube. It's Thursday, September 21st, 2017. Today, I want to talk about an idea that's sort of central to a lot of other rationalist ideas, also from the Human's Guide to Words sequence. And this is the idea of configuration or conceptual or thing space. And I wanted to dedicate a video to really nailing down what I mean when I say thing space. Okay, so in short, configuration space is a way of translating object descriptions into locations on a graph. The number of axes on this graph is dependent on the number of variables being compared, so it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. Let's say I ask you what this word robin means. You can think of all the attributes you ascribe to a robin. It's a small, flying, feathered creature, brown tail, standard robin shape, maximum flying speed when unladen, its species-typical DNA and individual alleles, etc. You can think of all those things as each being a dimension on this graph. And at the center of it is your idealized Platonic robin. This point in configuration space defines everything we want to know or could know about this robin concept. A robin is bigger than a virus and smaller than an aircraft carrier, so that might be something like a volume dimension. A robin also weighs more than a hydrogen atom, but less than a galaxy, so that might be a mass dimension. Then you just keep adding dimensions for every distinct characteristic of an object. If you think that's a bit head-warpy, quantum physicists use an infinite dimensional configuration space, and a single point in that space describes every particle in the entire universe. So we're actually being a bit more conservative here in our visualization of thing space. A point in thing space describes one semantic or conceptual object, not the entire universe. Unless the specific object being described is the universe, but let's not go down that road quite yet. If we're not sure of the robin's exact mass and volume, then we can think of it as a little cloud in thing space, a volume of uncertainty within which the robin might be. The density of the cloud is the density of our belief that the robin has that particular mass and volume. Okay, so to return to what we discussed yesterday so that we can build off of it, we can think of an intentional definition as a sort of glow in thing space, radiating outwards from the central conceptual concept. Humans have 10 fingers. Fred has 9 fingers. But that doesn't make Fred not a human, it just makes him a 9-fingered human, because on all other axes, he's still tightly clustered with the rest of the set of humans, and well within the intentional glow of the humanity concept. An extensional definition, then, is a specific point in configuration space around which we can then try to wrap an intentional definition. Suppose we mapped all the birds in the world into thing space, using a distance metric that corresponds as well as possible to their similarity when viewed by humans. A robin is more similar to another robin than either is to a pigeon, but both robins and pigeons are more similar to each other than either is to a penguin, and so on. So if you did this, then the center of all birdness would be densely populated with lots of different types and species of birds all clustering around each other. Robins and sparrows and canaries and pigeons and many other species all end up grouped up together. Eagles and falcons and other large predatory birds are in a nearby cluster. Penguins are off in a more distant cluster, and likewise chickens and ostriches might be scattered out into the edges in clusters of their own. The end result might look something like a giant astronomical object. Clusters of galaxies and stars all orbiting around each other and around the central concept, which casts its intentional light over everything. The central clusters of robins and sparrows glowing brightly like the central hub of a galactic supercluster, satellite clusters of ostriches and penguins glowing more dimly with atypical birdness, and Abraham Lincoln a few megaparsecs away and not glowing at all. When you're making an intentional definition, you're attempting to draw a circle around a cluster of points in configuration space. And There's no real way to do this without heavily simplifying and missing a lot of detail. And that's okay. The goal of a definition should just be to lead someone to the conceptual cluster, that giant astronomical object in your mind that you think of as birdness or humanness or whatever. It shouldn't and really can't be an attempt to download the entire object into someone else's head. It's just way too big to do that. Language is just too low bandwidth to transmit entire concepts as we view them in our heads. The concepts are too large, they're just too big of files, essentially. You can create graphs and models in conceptual space of any concept you have, and your mind sort of does this automatically on an unconscious level. So this is something that's very useful and keeps coming up. Understanding how we define words, how we use words, where we define the boundary conditions to be, these things are important, and being able to talk about these things in these terms really helps to decompose an argument into its base units. You'd be amazed at how many arguments in the real world are actually arguments about the definitions of a word, disguised as arguments about other things because people don't actually seem to realize what they're arguing about. And this is starting to get long, so I'm going to end it there today, but we're definitely going to come back to this stuff and we're going to be continuing to cover these concepts. And so I encourage people to ask questions. If they have any, I'll probably be doing a Q&A at some point soon. So look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're a fan of my content and want to help support my continued work on this sort of stuff, you can donate to my Patreon. Links to that, along with my Twitter and Discord server and blog, will be in the video description. Have a great day, YouTube. I'll see you tomorrow.